I need to tell you something.
What is it?
You're not as bad as everyone says you are.
There are some games that you just can't forget, but somehow, The Wolf Among Us got lost in time, slipping through the cracks while other games took the spotlight. This isn't just another Telltale title. It's a dark, twisted journey into a fairy tale noir, blending mystery and fantasy in a way that no other game has. With characters and a story that feels so human, you forget that you are speaking to a talking toad. This is a game where you lose yourself in a world that's just as magical as it is revolting, where every mystery solved unravels into a much larger and more dangerous plot. The Wolf Among Us is the perfect Telltale game that everyone forgot. If you'll come with me, we're going to dig into what made it unforgettable and why it deserves so much more. Like a lot of other Telltale games, The Wolf Among Us is based on an existing IP. Fables is a comic series that features fairy tale characters who've been driven out of their Disney-fied homelands. With nowhere else to go, they're forced to live in the most dangerous place in the world, Manhattan. You'll find Snow White, the Woodsman, the Tweedle Twins, and plenty more trying to carve out a new life in the concrete jungle. This isn't the happily ever after they left behind. They aren't knights, monsters, or damsels in distress anymore. They're all just people trying to get by.
They used to call me the Little Mermaid. Once upon a time.
The game itself is a prequel to the comic series, putting you in the shoes of the Wolf Among Us. You play as Big B Wolf, aka the Big Bad Wolf. He's the sheriff and the law enforcer who protects Fabletown's inhabitants, keeping the peace, solving cases, and preventing fables from being discovered by humans, also known as Mundies. But given the fact that he's the bad guy of all bad guys, most fables treat him with suspicion and fear, even though he constantly risks his life for them. It's this fragile dynamic, Big B's tightrope walk between his violent past and his role as a protector, that you'll have to balance as you uncover the mystery that's been brewing in Fabletown. Now with all that context out of the way, let's dive into episode 1. The game begins with Big B on one of his cases. Arriving at an apartment complex, he meets with Mr. Toad. There is an immediate issue as the amphibian is out of his glamour. Now, glamours are basically illusions used by fables who don't pass as human. The ones that can't or won't glamour themselves get sent to the farm.
I'm looking at a 3-foot toad in a sweater. That's a problem. If you can't afford to look human, you're going to the farm. It's as simple as that.
You can't send me up to live with those animals.
Mr. Toad then explains that the woodsman's gone on another bender and is causing a huge scene up in his apartment. We're interrupted when we hear a different voice from upstairs.
Fuck you!
I didn't know anyone else was up there.
Big B then rushes up to find the woodsman assaulting an unknown woman. Now, I find Woody to be one of the more interesting characters in the game. He's one of the only people that have his story directly tied with Big B's past.
You got a shit fucking memory, Wolf. That's not how it went last time.
This isn't last time.
No longer the hero, he's degraded into a drunken abuser who we now have to deal with. Later on, he even reveals that his reasons for saving Red Riding Hood were suspect.
I was gonna rob her. And the night I finally get up the nerve to do it, there you are, fucking things up for me. You were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. I wasn't there to save her.
He is an asshole through and through, there's no denying that. But it's him and his lowest where we find his most human traits, which we'll get more into later. The altercation very quickly escalates, with Woody even brandishing the same axe that he used to save Red Riding Hood. Eventually, the both of them do decide to cool their heads and get some fresh air. Surviving the fall, the woodsman grabs Big B and starts choking him out. We get a glimpse of the wolf among us when Big B's eyes start flashing a different color. Before the canine gets brought out, The girl we saved axes the woodsman in the back of the head. Not to worry though, fables are pretty sturdy and Woody will survive this. She then explains that she's a woman of the night that's trying to get her payment. With the woodsman's pockets being empty, we offer her $50 to try and help her out. After thanking us, she adds that she needs to tell Bigby something, but it has to be done after she drops off the money. Arranging to meet at his apartment, the two part ways and we transition into the intro. This is a great time for me to talk about the game's amazing visuals. While Telltale is known for this art style nowadays, they didn't always go for a comic book aesthetic. The style is a result of them emulating the comic book The Wolf Among Us is based off of. This was also done in The Walking Dead, and their execution in both cases deserves some worthy praise. Their interpretations of beloved and unknown fairy tales strikes this really cool balance of familiar and unfamiliar. It makes figuring out who they are a fun game in and of itself. Some are a lot more obvious than others just from their names alone, while others require just a little bit of digging to really get. It really sells how much they cared about the source material. Unlike a lot of edgy retellings of classic stories, Telltale took the time to really sit down and pick the fables that they want in this game. We'll get into more of that as we move along though. Bigby returns to his apartment, though before he does, he spots Beauty trying to sneak her way outside. She begs for him to keep this a secret from Beast before she goes on her way. Not wanting to get involved in that mess, we hold her secret from Beast when he comes by later.
Bigby, hey, wait up. Have you seen my wife? Have you seen Beauty?
Nope, haven't seen her.
Oh, okay. Sorry to bother you. Damn it. Something's going on.
Finally back home, we find Colin sleeping on Bigby's chair. Colin is one of the three little pigs whose house got blown away by the big bad wolf. He fled from the farm due to the living conditions there and has decided to crash at Bigby's place. He isn't really important to the overall plot, but he does deliver an important line for both Bigby and the player.
But, no, hate's the wrong word. They fear you more than anything. You ate a lot of people back in your day.
I thought we were all supposed to have a fresh start here. I can't change the past.
Well, you can't change people's memories either. Look, I'm not saying it's fair, but it's real. People are scared of you.
This is essentially the game's biggest question: how you, the player, decide to play things out as the sheriff of Fabletown. While your choices don't really change much of the plot, the way you handle things does color how the rest of the cast view Bigby. There's this real conflict where he is needed precisely because of his violent nature, but because of that, he'll never truly be trusted.
Can I, ask you a question? It's kind of personal. And I don't want to offend you, but after tonight, it's on my mind.
Why? What's on your mind?
It's just, when stuff hits the fan, like it did tonight, it feels like before we came to the city. It feels kind of like home. And I've heard it said that maybe in some tiny little bottled up way deep inside, you kind of enjoy it when things go wrong.
In this way, Bigby becomes the perfect vessel for the player. It helps that his voice actor, Adam Harrington, does an amazing job at portraying a gruff detective. You can totally live out the fantasy of being a no-nonsense beatnik or a loose cannon who always gets a job done.
What is it with you cops? Always trying to empathize with people. I know this must be hard for you. Do you? Do you fucking know? Have you had a friend killed and their head left at your fucking doorstep?
But I've already sidetracked enough. Let's get back into the story. Bigby tries to get some sleep, but a knock at the door ruins that. Opening up, he finds Snow White standing outside. Snow is Bigby's love interest, but she does have a lot more going to her than just that. As the events of the game unfold, she evolves and changes to meet those challenges head on. Though she starts as just a secretary, by the end of the game, she becomes a true equal to Bigby and is even better than him in certain scenarios. She asks us to come downstairs where we find a gruesome discovery. Whatever Faith wanted to tell Bigby may have cost her her life. We investigate and discover her ribbon's been stuffed into her mouth alongside a curious looking ring. We decide to tell the mayor what's happened, and he isn't exactly thrilled about it.
Because you are the one bringing this to me, Miss Snow. The one who so simply stumbled upon this catastrophe on our very doorstep. The last thing I need with Mayor Cole away is a hysteria. Do you understand me?
We'll talk more about him later. Trust me. With the help of Buffkin, one of the Wicked Witch's flying monkeys, we then use the records at the office to find out the woman's name and story.
Donkey Skin Girl, also known as Donkey Skin, also known as Ass Skin, prefers to go by the name Faith. Poetic?
Buffkin, we don't need the commentary.
The story of Donkey Skin. There was once a great king with a beautiful queen. The queen grew ill and had her husband promise to only marry the most beautiful girl in the kingdom. After a long search, it became clear that the only woman in the land that could match her beauty was... his daughter, Faith. She had a magic cloak made from the skin of her father's prized donkey that would hide her beauty so she could escape his kingdom. Eventually, she married a prince who could see past the magic cloak and knew her true beauty. And they lived happily ever after.
I love that the game appropriately frames the disturbing fairy tales as such. I'm sure we've all had moments where we found out the original version of a fairy tale turned out to be a lot more disturbing than what we were exposed to as kids. We then use this info to track her husband down using the magic mirror. His relationship with Bigby is pretty hilarious. I love his insistence on being spoken to in rhyme. It leads to some really funny dialogue.
You know the rule.
I don't have time for this shit.
Your impatience is callow. You're needlessly cruel, but have some respect for our history rules.
Mirror, mirror. If you're able, tell me all about this fable.
See? Was that so hard?
Yeah, I'm about 2 seconds away from kicking a hole in you.
The mirror then shows us the prince, who isn't exactly in the best shape. As we turn to leave though, we get a phone call from Mr. Toad. A break-in is happening at his apartment as we speak, and this is our first major choice in the game. Do we go to the prince, who may be dead or dying in his house, or do we go to Mr. Toad, whose life may be in just as much danger? Knowing that he has son with them, I elect to go with the latter. I'm sure the prince will be fine, right?
Foreshadowing as a narrative device.
Anyway, we arrive at Mr. Toad's and find a figure snooping around in Woodsman's apartment. We run upstairs, but by the time we get there, they've already disappeared. We go to Mr. Toad, and he's strangely really cagey about the situation.
Sorry, Bigby. It's embarrassing to have to admit, but I thought there was someone else in Woody's place. There wasn't, though. Not when I checked. Nothing but a leaky drain pipe. Imagination must have got the best of me.
We get a chance to investigate the room, and we very quickly dismantle all of his excuses. With Mr. Toad caught in his lie, he finally admits that he was attacked by one of the Tweedle twins. He was trying to find something in Woody's apartment and wanted to make sure Mr. Toad stayed quiet by threatening his son.
But he said if word of this ever got back to him, if he ever thought you knew, or Miss White, he'd come back and kill my boy.
With this information in hand, we decide to check out the prince's apartment. Arriving at the scene, we walk in to find that he's, deleted his save file. Looking around the area, we find notes that reveal he's been depressed since Faith left. Our investigation then leads us to the closet where...
Stay here!
I'm not gonna lie, that rattled me too. We chase the man down who's surprisingly nimble for how much of an egg he is. If you thought he was Humpty Dumpty, don't worry, I did too. He's actually one of the Tweedle twins, which we find out when we corner him. He tries to explain that he's investigating the case just like we are. He came to the prince's apartment to tell him what happened to his wife, and, well, you saw the result. He then tells us that Woody is at the Trip Trap. a bar run by another Fable. Before we get anything else though, we're attacked from behind by the other Tweedle and we're knocked out.
You almost looked peaceful.
Yep.
Except you're lying in a dirty alley.
Yep.
With an open wound on the back of your head.
Yep. Just leave me here.
Yeah, I feel you, buddy. I actually fell down some stairs not too long ago, and all I wanted to do was stay on the floor to try and regain just a little bit of pride before I let my friends help me back up. But now, armed with the Tweedle's information, we head to the Trip Trap where we're not exactly welcome.
Give me a Midas Gold.
You want a lime?
Sure.
I think they have some at the bar down the street.
After a bit of prodding, we find out that they're covering for Woody when he comes out of the bathroom. Speaking to him, he makes it clear that he had no idea that Faith was murdered and begs Bigsy to believe him. There we go. Jesus, why did I add so many B's into this sentence? In the middle of this, one of the patrons, a guy named Gren, short for the Grendel, walks up to Bigby and starts going on a tirade against him. How he only comes over when the privileged Fables need to sort out a problem. He even brings up how Holly's sister went missing and it still hasn't been properly investigated. Holly is the bar owner, by the way, but she's a lot more important later. The moment boils over into a full-on fight when Gren calls Snow a bitch. I actually really like how the game removes every other option here. It takes control away from the player, yes, but it does it in a way that completely characterizes Bigby's affection for her and his uncontrollable anger in certain situations. It's a small detail, but it goes a long way. Gren turns off his glamour and he transforms into his regular monster shape. While he has the advantage at first, Bigby quickly folds him like laundry the moment he taps into his hybrid form. A cool detail is that the game gives us the option to rip off his arm, exactly like how the Grendel was defeated by Beowulf in the original story. Have I mentioned how much I love the game's dedication to preserving the Fable's origins? Despite my love of the actual Beowulf story, I decided not to, letting him slump to the ground in pain. As we move in to arrest Woody for questioning, we get interrupted when Tweedledee walks in.
Alright, I got $100 for the first bloke that can tell me something about a girl named... Fuck.
We now have the final choice of the episode as we're forced to pick between arresting Dee or Woody. I'm not gonna lie, I kinda panicked on this choice and I ended up choosing Woody. I could pretend to say that I had an elaborate reason as to why, like some kind of big brain 4D chess thing going on, but I really don't have a good reason. On our way back to our office, we see a bunch of human police officers standing outside the building. We push our way through and... yeah, I lied to you guys. Snow dies at the end of the first episode. I was taken aback too. I fully expected her and Bigby to have a lot more time together. It's a pretty ballsy move, all things considered. It reminds me of when Lily shot Carly in The Walking Dead. It was such a shock to the system that I kinda had to set the game down to recollect myself. It does do a great job at setting the stakes though. You can never really guess who'll be the next victim. But you know what isn't a lie? Leaving a like and a sub to support the channel. I would actually really appreciate it. But now let's move on to the next episode. We start with Bigby getting interrogated at the police station. Between his grief and the fact that he has to keep quiet about Fabletown, he refuses to cooperate. As the cops continue to grill him, her nose starts bleeding and every cop in sight then passes out. A moment later, the mayor barges into the room. This is Ichabod Crane. He's a creep, he's a coward, and he's a cunt. He explains that he casted a memory wipe spell on the entire station and the two of them need to get out before everyone wakes up. We drive back to the office where we now have to interrogate Woody. If you happen to have arrested Tweedledee, he'll take his place here. This is also where we get to meet Bluebeard. Bluebeard is a red herring. That's all he is. If you read his character profile or know his story of origin, you'll know that he was pretty much centered entirely around decapitating women. Add the fact that he's pretty much antagonistic the entire investigation, and it just makes him too obvious of a suspect. He's also voiced by Dave Fennoy, which makes my brain hurt. I still think of Lee whenever I hear those dulcet tones, no matter how much of an asshole the character is.
Hello, Sheriff. Come to help? Because I think I have a secure handle on things.
We have the option of either beating the info out of Woody or to try and reason with him. I decide to take it easy and instead try to appeal to his sensibilities. I'd like to imagine that Bigby completely understands what it's like to be seen as an irredeemable scumbag. Sure, Woody is a scumbag right now, but treating him like a monster is only going to push him further down that path. I'd like to imagine that this is Bigby giving him the compassion that he never got when he was still the big bad wolf. After a while, he finally spills everything. Faith wasn't supposed to be there that night. Woody was expecting to see Lily, who he's a regular for. Yeah, Holly's sister is a prostitute. If you recall, the fight broke out because Woody couldn't pay for her services. Lily was usually okay looking the other way, but Faith just wasn't. Bluebeard doesn't exactly believe that's the entire story, so he prepares to get more physical with Woody. Bigby gets in his way and, okay, I know I brought up The Walking Dead a lot, but it's just weird seeing Bluebeard get choked out in the exact same way Lee choked Kenny out. They must have reused the animation because the resemblance is uncanny. But while they're struggling with each other...
Snow!
What's going on down here?
Snow.
Yeah, I lied to you guys again. Or, I lied to you once? I double lied? I lied when I said I lied, which cancels out the lie, which means that I only told the truth. Yeah. Bigby's confused out of his mind seeing Snow alive. It all becomes clear though when they examine the body. After some careful detective work, they find out that the woman is someone glamored to look like Snow, which... gross? It's clear though that the glamour is some kind of black market bootleg since there's a few inaccurate details. Needle marks on her legs, an extra button on the jacket, and her, private clothes. The glamour fades away to reveal a troll. Everyone's confused at first, but the tattoo on her leg makes it obvious who this is. This is Lily, Holly's sister. I just want to take a moment to say that I love this reveal. It makes so much sense for everything that the game set up so far. Faith's death, the glamours, Lily's disappearance. It's the kind of plot twist that makes sense when you trace back all the clues. Believe me, I hate bad plot twists. I still hold a grudge against Pixar for all the bad villain twists they keep trying to pull, but maybe that was just my mistake. Moving on, Bigby and Snow decide to visit the Trip Trap to learn more about where Lily worked and to inform Holly of her death. When we arrive, we find Gren and Holly talking with Jack. Jack is pretty much an amalgamation of every fairy tale that has Jack in the title. Jack and the Beanstalk, Jack and Jill, Jack Horner, Samurai Jack, you get it. He's the main character of all main characters. He's kinda like the opposite of Bigby. He's allowed the status of being the hero to completely go to his head, and he's pretty much still stuck in that mindset well into his new life. We break the news to Holly and she's devastated. She even lashes out at Snow, and as unfair as that was for her to do, that's grief, man. Wanting to help nab the murderer, she gives us the details on where she worked. The brothel is called the Pudding and Pie, and it's run by Georgie Porgy, the guy who kisses girls. She also requests Lily's body, as trolls have a tradition to burn their dead. We agree to her terms before heading off. We get to George's place where... okay, I'm just gonna need to place a giant censor bar here. YouTube, please leave me alone. Please. Georgie's, well, he's a piece of work. He's more than happy to take advantage of women in need, and he's not apologetic of it at all. I decided to work things out with him peacefully, but I wouldn't blame you guys if he decided to go ham on his ass. We questioned him on who Lily's client was the night she disappeared. He denies knowing anything at first, saying that discretion is their specialty, which means no records. But one of his workers mentions a little black book that he keeps. In response, Georgie picks up a battle and gets ready to beat him. Bigby grabs it right out of his hands. We then have the option of trashing the place so that he gives us the info we need. But like I mentioned before, I went with a peaceful route. It's actually pretty funny how many times Bigby goes, "Oh, I'm gonna break it! I will," and never actually doing it. It's one of those Telltale things where the story moves forward no matter what, but this is just one of those funnier instances of it. We eventually manage to find a floor safe and make Georgie open it. Lo and behold, the black book. We skim through it and find Lily's last client was a guy named Mr. Smith, an alias that doesn't really tell us much right now. While Georgie's trying to call the business office to lodge a complaint, the dancer from before calls us to the back. This is Nerissa, the Little Mermaid. Bigby tries to ask her what happened to Lily, but she only responds with,
"These lips are sealed. Discretion is our guarantee."
This is a phrase that's been repeated before. Faith mentioned it when Bigby asked where she worked, the woman who walked us in said the same thing when we asked about Lily, and even the magic mirror mentioned it when we asked about finding Faith. Something magical is clearly at work here, and as much as Nerissa wants to, she can't really tell Bigby what happened. But she does realize something clever though. She asks Bigby if she wants to, inquire about her services, which points us in the direction of where Lily was last seen. She hands us a key to a room at a nearby hotel and we go on our way. We make our way inside and find Beauty at the desk. This is where she's been going. She explains to Bigby that she's not in fact a prostitute, she's just running the front desk. Money's been tight with her and Beast, and she knows that it would wound his pride to find out that she's working. Not gonna lie though, Beast kinda needs to grow up. You're not less of a man just cause your partner works too. Come on, buddy. Bigby persuades her to help him on the case, and the two go upstairs to find the room that Mr. Smith is renting. We get to the door and...
Beauty!
Ah, shit.
Beast?
Bigby? How could you do this to me?
Oh, this trope in the book. It's a little contrived, but what can you do? We get into a fight with Beast, which ends when Bigby crashes them both through the door. That solves getting into the room, at least. The two of them find their footing, and they turn to see that the room's just covered in blood.
What is this? Bigby.
Look what you did to the door! You can't just act like this whenever
Stand back! You don't want to see this.
Well, we got the door open.
Careful investigation of the room reveals that whoever Mr. Smith is, his obsession with snow runs deep. We find several pieces of evidence that he's been having relations with women that he has glamored to look like her. There's even a dress, perfume, and props to recreate the story. We then find an envelope containing...
What is it?
It's Crane.
I can't describe how much this scene made my skin crawl. I'm gonna spoil some things right now, so for anybody who still wants to follow along, jump here. Ichabod isn't the murderer, but he's a creep! He's gross! If I find out someone was paying another person to look, smell, and act like me while doing the forbidden sideways shuffle, I'd never be able to feel comfortable with myself. Good lord. In the next episode, Snow becomes increasingly paranoid, and for good reason. She's worked with this man for years, and it turns out he's been doing this the entire time? Yikes! Okay, I need to calm down. Let's continue with the next episode. We immediately pick up right where we left off. Bigby runs down and heads to Lily's funeral. When we're there, we have the option to interrupt the eulogy to talk to Snow. I'm not a fucking animal, so I just wait for a lull to talk to Snow. We explained the situation to her and she's in shock. I would be too. With the funeral still happening though, she returns to the others to finish things up. As we're waiting, a gun gets pressed into Bigby's back. The Tweedle twins have come back, urging Bigby to back off the investigation or they'll start shooting. Regardless of how you respond, Holly notices what's happening. Seeing the two waving their guns around, Gren and Holly are understandably pissed. They de-glamour and charge to attack them. They both get shot for their trouble, and Bigby himself gets blasted in the scuffle. We then jump back to the business office where Bigby's being treated by the local physician, Dr. Swinehart. Buffkin tries his best to put the magic mirror back together after Crane's sabotage, but he realizes that one of the pieces has been taken, likely by Crane himself. Since he was here at the time, he tells the two that he overheard Crane talking to the phone. He mentioned something about meeting a witch at 2 AM for an unknown magic item. Bluebeard then comes stomping to the office, demanding an explanation for Crane's disappearance. After giving an explanation, he insists that he wants to get involved in the investigation. With our time limited, we have to choose 2 out of 3 options while Bluebeard takes what's left. We could either investigate Crane's personal suite, barge into the Tweedle's office as they were trying to impede the investigation, or we could go to the Trip Trap to check Lily's belongings. There is a good chance the witch she got her glamours from is the same witch Crane is dealing with. I'm not going to go everything that happens here because we find out the same info no matter what we choose. 1. Crane's been embezzling funds from Fabletown. 2. He's been using said money to pay off a debt to the Crooked Man. 3. The Crooked Man is a loan shark that has a good chunk of Fabletown also indebted to him, including Beauty and Beast. 4. The name of his witch is Auntie Greenleaf, and 5. The address to said witch's apartment. I do want to highlight one moment though, because it's honestly pretty sad. While you're going through Lily's stuff, Holly talks to Bigby and asks him one simple question.
Do you even give a shit about us? The strays? The ones that aren't in that fancy high-rise. Those of us that gotta work for a living.
Holly, just because I live in the woodlands doesn't mean I'm not one of your strays.
It's honestly a fair thing to ask. If there's one thing that's been made obvious at this point, the system that's been put in place in Fabletown is just broken. There is a very distinct divide between the fables that can pass off as human and the ones that can't. The non-human fables are forced to pay for glamours if they want to live anywhere that isn't the farm. Because they're so expensive, people are either forced to work unsavory jobs or to get bootlegs just to get by. In some cases, it's both. It's rife with openings for people like Georgie and the Crooked Man to take advantage of them. We'll find out exactly how later, but it's this exact system that's produced the perfect circumstances for these murders to happen. With everything we've gathered so far, Snow and Bigby arrive at Auntie Greenleaf's abode. Knocking at the door, a child answers, explaining that Auntie Greenleaf is her mom and she isn't here right now. We invite ourselves in, assuring her that we're just here to investigate. Looking around, we eventually find a glamour box in one of the drawers. We unseal it and the child transforms into Auntie Greenleaf right in front of our eyes. Greenleaf is a bit cagey with her info at first, and this kinda sets Snow off. I honestly can't even blame her at this point. Between the murders and Crane's, affairs, I'd be a powder keg too. She threatens to burn down her tree, which is a crucial part to her making her glamours. This breaks the witch, who then explains everything. Crane came here to ask for a dispelling ring. She tried to explain to him that the magic doesn't work anymore, but he took it anyway and left for the pudding and pie. With the info in hand, Bigby gets ready to head off, but Snow insists that they go through with burning the tree. We have the option to either follow her demand or to give Greenleaf an official job at making real glamours. I go with the latter. Like I mentioned before, the system is broken. People need these glamours. Destroying the tree is only going to remove another option for them. We then head off to the brothel where we find Crane trying to use the ring on Nerissa. As expected, it doesn't really work. We grab him, but it's obvious to Snow that there's no way Crane committed the murderers. Not that she's vouching for his character. No. He's just way too much of a spineless coward to ever actually do something like this. Regardless, he is still responsible for stealing money from Fabletown's coffers, so we move to arrest him anyway. On our way out, a car cuts us off at the alleyway. We try to find another way out only for another car to block us. We're then met with the Tweedle twins and a surprising third party, Bloody fucking Mary. Okay, but like, Bloody Mary is a really cool addition. Despite being introduced so late into the game, she's about to cause a massive swerve as she demands Bigby to hand Crane over. The Crooked Man wants him and he just doesn't want us getting in the way. We say no, of course, which the twins take offense at. Bigby, the absolute unit that he is, just stands back up and starts tanking the gunshots like he's walking through it like he's Dragon Ball Z Broly hearing someone say Kakarot. Bro even taps into the legendary Super Wolf form and starts bodying the twins. We get the chance to outright eliminate one of them, but I decide to spare his life. It's at this moment where Mary shoots Bigby in the back. Unlike the shotguns, the revolver actually does a lot of damage as it's revealed that she shot him with a silver bullet. Werewolf rules, baby. Before she kills us, Snow intervenes and offers Crane in exchange for our life. The Crooked Man allows it and Bloody Mary backs off, but not before leaving Bigby with a beauty mark. The episode then ends with Bigby passing out. Wow. If you're gonna introduce a villain this late into the story, that's how you do it. Bloody Mary gave us an immediate reason to see her as a threat. Unlike everyone else, she isn't even the least bit afraid of Bigby. Even Woody cowered away from him after he sobered up. Plus, everybody's heard of Bloody Mary. Just the mention of her name conjures vivid memories of ghost stories and bravery challenges the entire world over. I cannot wait to see what the next episode has in store, which we'll get into right now. I'm gonna go quicker on this episode, not because I don't like it, but because it's mainly set up for episode 5. We start with a nightmare sequence where Bigby gets attacked by Bloody Mary. He wakes up right in the middle of Dr. Swinehart getting the bullet out of him. Instead of the office, we're in the apartment with Snow and Colin in the same room. The doctor warns Bigby not to get shot by another silver bullet and he takes his leave. Snow, now the acting mayor, insists that they need to do everything by the book now. As thankful as she is that Bigby protected her, it would have been a complete disaster if Amundi saw a full-ass werewolf fighting in an alleyway. As part of this initiative, she insists that every unglamoured fable has to be sent to the farm. No more leniency. Bigby has a choice to either back her up or to stand up for Colin. I chose the latter because honestly, Colin's vibes, they soothe my soul. Snow then gets a call and informs Bigby that Nerissa is looking for him. In his office, Nerissa tries her best to explain things to Bigby, but the enchantment continues to stop her at every turn. A thing to note though is that if Bigby tries to remove her ribbon, she panics and backs away from him.
You mind if I just...
No! His lips are sealed!
What?
You can't! Just stay back! You can't do that!
Slow down. It's alright. I'm not gonna do anything.
Snow then knocks on the door to tell Bigby that Beauty and Beast are looking for him. Nerissa seizes the chance to give Bigby another clue and urges him to talk to them. We head on over and... damn. Okay, like, they're gonna have a big ol' fight about money and get in debt to the Crooked Man with an apartment like this? Okay. Beast explains to Bigby that he's been working for the Crooked Man. He got a loan from him at a pawn shop run by the Jersey Devil. Yeah, that Jersey Devil. And he's a courier for the butcher shop. This now gives us 2 different leads and we have to choose which one we want to go after first. Considering that the butcher shop might have more for me, I decide to go there first. We arrive and... damn. Really? I'm just gonna take a second here to say that Bigby's the worst kind of smoker. He takes out a cig, puffs it once or twice, and then just puts it onto the floor. Like, who does that? The butcher tries to keep Bigby occupied and runs into the back. We follow him inside and find that the back room is being used as a kind of illegal black market factory run by the Crooked Man. We also find a list of clients which involves a lot of non-human fables. This must be the heart of the bootleg glamours. With nothing else to find, we head straight for the pawn shop. When we enter, we find Woody arguing with Jersey. As we saw in the last episode, Woody's axe was stolen and he has a feeling somebody sold it here. We get in between them, but a fight inevitably breaks out. Jersey Devil unglamorous, but he gets absolutely bodied when Bigby and Woody start jumping him. He gives up the info on the Crooked Man's hideout. Apparently, the front door to his house is enchanted and it jumps to different locations randomly. We also find the missing piece of the magic mirror, which is exactly the thing we need to finally track the man down. Before we leave, Bigby and Woody share a smoke together. This is going to be the last time we see Woody before the finale. It's not really a full redemption for his character, but it's honestly pretty nice seeing the two on some kind of common ground. If the game had a sequel, this would be a really great jumping off point to see them fully mending things. We then return to the office where we repair the magic mirror. Before we locate the Crooked Man, Snow just needs to know where Crane is. At the very least, she might get some sense of closure. The mirror shows Bloody Mary giving him a ticket to Paris so that he can keep his head low. In a terrifying turn of events, she knows we're looking at her and she just ends the vision.
What just happened?
We then ask the magic mirror to show us a door to the Crooked Man's house. He shows it to us and Snow recognizes it from Central Park. We then head straight on there where we thankfully find the door still in place. We run inside and we teleport right into the Crooked Man's lair. We're greeted by Tiny Tim, who says they've been expecting us. He escorts us to the main room where we find Crooked Man along with his entire posse, though, curiously, Bloody Mary isn't anywhere to be seen. The episode then ends with Bigby lighting a cig. The final episode starts directly where we left off with Bigby confronting the Crooked Man. We can either directly ask him to tell us who did it, or we can take a crack at making an educated guess. I wasn't completely sure about it, but the best guess I had at this point was Georgie. Being their pimp, he would be the closest person to kill both Faith and Lily. He's also the only other person who likes the same brand of cigarettes that Bigby smokes. It's the exact same brand that was found in the room Lily died. As it turns out, I was right. The Crooked Man applauds our detective work and is willing to just give him up to Bigby. Georgie's pissed, of course, and he tells Bigby he did it under the Crooked Man's orders. When Bigby announces that he's arresting them both, Bloody Mary teleports through a mirror and attacks Bigby. A brawl breaks out, which gives the Crooked Man and Bloody Mary the opening to escape. Georgie gets stabbed in the fray, but he manages to slip out when the other goons attack us. We eventually throw them off and then we run out. Seeing Georgie getting into a car, Bigby turns into his werewolf form and starts chasing after. We're given the choice between trying to either catch up with Georgie or to divert and try to get onto the Crooked Man's limo. I go with the former because it honestly feels just a little bit more appropriate to leave him for last. We get shaken off the car, but we manage to track it down to the pudding and pie. Once inside, we find Georgie barely clinging to life. He reveals one last thing to Bigby before he croaks.
What would you have me do? Kill her?
Georgie, don't.
It was them or Vivian. So you tell me, if freeing Lily meant she had to die. Do you still think I had a fucking choice?
What are you doing?
I told you, you don't know the fuck about anything.
Wait, how is she involved in all this?
This is the original. The girl with the ribbon. I'm sure you've heard the stories. Couldn't take it off, couldn't talk about it. She used her little purple ribbon to make more of them. To keep our girls quiet. To ensure absolute discretion.
You promised you wouldn't.
This honestly blew my fucking mind. The girl's name is Vivian, but she never really stood out to me throughout the entire story. This is an amazing way to hide a secret in plain sight. The story is completely mirrored with all of the victims. The fact that they were enchanted to keep their mouths shut, the murders all being decapitations, it's all there. I'm sure somebody pieced it all together way before this point, but I didn't, and damn, that was really smart. Georgie then includes that the only way to break the enchantment is to remove the ribbon on Vivian. Despite Bigby's hesitation, Vivian decides to take matters into her own hands.
I know what I've done.
Wait,
I'm sick of everyone thinking that they can just do what they want with my life. I thought it would be different here. But it's all the fucking same.
Vivian, I didn't mean...
Do you think I wanted to be this person? What I did to Faith and Lily? To all of them.
Vivian, wait.
Every day I have to look Gwen and Hans in the eye and pretend I don't care. I have to forget what I've done to them. What I took away from them. I look at Nerissa and I hate myself.
Vivian.
I can't pretend anymore.
What are you doing? Vivian, don't. Vivian, no! Fuck! No, 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 no! Why'd you have to do that, Vivian? Vivian!
Heartbroken, Georgie tells us that the Crooked Man's second hideout is in a nearby factory. We then have the option to either leave him to bleed out or ending his misery. For all of his faults and his disgusting behavior, I still decide to show him some mercy. With a single strike, Bigby ends Georgie's life. We arrive at the factory where we're immediately taunted by Bloody Mary.
They used to fear you. They'd hide anywhere their small shivering bodies would fit.
We walk into a workshop of sorts, which shows how they've been making all the silver bullets. We're then ambushed by the woman herself as the Crooked Man starts to make his escape. We then fight Bloody Mary in a long and intense sequence. I love the design of her true form. The glass shards poking out of her body is such an intimidating aesthetic. The fact that her powers lets her teleport all over the place and control a nearly unlimited army of mirror clones just makes her the perfect threat to Bigby. It doesn't matter how strong he is, she'll eventually just wear him down. The one thing that she didn't count on though is that Werewolf Bigby isn't even his final form. He shifts and becomes the Big Bad Wolf. With a huff and a puff, he blows all of Mary's clones into dust. Bigby then spots the real Mary and shatters her into pieces as well, finally ending the fight. We then corner the Crooked Man who still has the revolver. 6 bullets, more than enough to kill us. He demands that he be brought in alive and be given a chance at a fair trial. It seems he fully believes that he can walk away if given this chance. We are given the choice to kill him, but wanting to do things the right way, we bring him in. We take him to the witching well where everyone's gathered around. The crowd wants an immediate execution, but Snow insists that he's given a chance to speak. After all, if the system is going to be fixed, people need to let it run, no matter their personal feelings. The Crooked Man openly admits that it was indeed George who killed Faith and Lily. However, he completely denies that he had anything to do with it. The only person who could even dispute him right now is Georgie, and the man's long dead. He then goes on to try and get everyone on his side, explaining that he was there for people when the government left them desperate. Depending on your choices, the crowd either supports him or rebukes him.
What about Auntie Greenleaf? Her story is not uncommon. She left everything she had back in the homelands. Everything that matters, anyway. With nowhere else to turn, she came to me for help. And what did I do for you?
You got my tree back.
I got her tree back, and in turn we used her magic to help poor Fables get glamours. Because I helped her, she was able to make a living, provide for herself. And what did they do?
For the longest time, not much, but they asked me to come work for them.
Really? The new deputy mayor wants you on the 13th floor?
No. The wolf offered me the job.
Bigby then chimes in that the Crooked Man's support was never extended in good faith. It was always an attempt to entrap someone in the Crooked Man's paws in one way or another. Despite things turning on the Crooked Man, he's still adamant that none of this is hard proof of him ordering Faith and Lily's death. It seems that we're caught in a bind. That is until Nerissa finally arrives. Without the enchantment, she can finally unveil the truth. She tells everyone that she and the other girls were in the same room when he gave the order. This is more than enough for the crowd to finally make one more push for his execution. Desperate, the Crooked Man tries to take Bigby hostage, but we all know he's nowhere near strong enough to keep the Wolfman in a bind. Grabbing the Crooked Man, we now have the last major choice of the game. We can either drop him into the well, rip his head off, or arrest him. Following due process, I decide to have Bigby drop him into the well where he meets his demise. We then cut a few days after the trial. Things seem to have calmed down in Fabletown and everyone's just trying to put their lives back together. We even see Colin with a case of beers heading to Bigby's apartment. We then head outside where we see Mr. Toad and his son packing up to head for the farm. A pretty bittersweet moment, all things considered. It shows that there is still some level of unfairness in the system, even now. After giving our parting words to them both, they head off right as we see Nerissa on the other side of the street. She explains that she's here to say goodbye. Oddly enough, she still has her ribbon around her neck. When asked why, she explains that it's just difficult to fully accept that her life is no longer bound by a simple piece of thread. She also goes on to reveal that she hasn't been entirely honest. Her, Faith, and Lily were planning to escape the pudding and pie. Faith decided that they needed leverage if they were going to do that, so she took one of the photos Crane had with Lily. Afraid that the Crooked Man would kill all three of them, Nerissa ended up ratting out their plans. She hoped that it would cause them to just go back to work and things would resume from there, but sadly, that just wasn't the case. She also admits that she never actually heard the Crooked Man give explicit orders to kill Faith and Lily, but he did tell Georgie to take care of things. Bigby is admittedly frustrated that she decided to omit details, but what's done is done. As far as Fabletown is concerned, the case is open and shut and the little things don't really matter. Finally, she reveals that she was the one who left the heads outside the building. Nerissa was the one that kicked off the investigation in the first place. Let's be honest, Bigby would have never been assigned to look into all of this without Nerissa's intervention. If Lily's disappearance was any indication, this would have just slipped through the cracks. Before leaving, she has one last thing to say to Bigby.
You're not as bad as everyone says you are.
I need to tell you something. I have to tell you something.
I feel like we've met before.
You're trying to place me. You like my ribbon? Do you like it?
Faith wore one too.
Would hide her beauty so she could escape his kingdom.
They used to call me the Little Mermaid.
Dr. Swinehart ever get back to you about Faith?
He said he wanted to run more tests. I hope you find what you're looking for. I'll see you around, Wolf.
I need a sequel. Telltale, please. You guys don't understand. I've been cracking away at the script for weeks, trying to explain my feelings in a professional manner, but I'm kind of the end of my rope. We had a teaser trailer all the way back in 2022, and we're about to hit 2025. The characters are amazing. The ties to their fairy tales are so well done. The fact that the solution to the whole plot is baked directly into the world building is absolutely something else. The Wolf Among Us is a story about people just trying to get by. It's a story where people have been abandoned and got desperate. So desperate that they were fully willing to make a deal with the devil just to scrape by. It's a story that's worth telling, and it's a story that was relevant back then as it is now. It's a story that was forgotten by the masses, and it's a story that I hope you guys decide to experience for yourself. At the end of the day, maybe the wolf was among us all along.